What's up, BoobTube? Long time no see. Not. Oh, I'm bringing Not back. Remember the 90s and Not? Alright. Before I start talking about stupid shit like that, let's get right into it. I got five more things to do. First up, I ran out of books to read because all the ones I kind of want are still to be released. There's a million of them, but they're all, well, they're not out in paperback anyways. I don't like to do hardcover if I can avoid it. Just because of the weight and the space they take up, but also mostly the price of them. So I went to the bookshelf, and for about the dozenth time in my life, I have gone back and read Jurassic Park, the book, written by Michael Crichton, R.I.P. This was easily my favorite book of his, and probably my favorite book of all time. You all know the story of the movie. A crazy old eccentric billionaire that built a genetics company called InGen found a way to obtain dinosaur DNA, obtained an island in Costa Rica, and a bunch of other stuff to make it happen, and they reproduced dinosaurs by reconstituting their DNA from what they learned, and they are planning on opening Jurassic Park. But the lawyers and the investors are like, this sounds kind of dangerous, especially since all these workers have had accidents and some have died. So Hammond gets a bunch of professionals in the field of various things: mathematics, Ian Malcolm, chaos theory, mathematics, Alan Grant, a paleontologist, Ellie Sattler, a paleobotanist, and who else was down there? I guess just the three of them. And then as well as his grandkids to hit the target audience and stuff like that. And then, of course, a bad storm rolls in, combined with the nefarious activities of a corrupt computer programmer, all combined while they're touring the park to obliterate things. And it's basically a fight for survival as the dinosaurs are loose, and they all must escape the island if they can. So, now, the book... the movie, don't get me wrong, is one of the best movies ever made, but the book is so much better. It's just so much more in-depth, and Crichton goes into all the stuff behind the DNA and all that stuff. It's a lot more informative than the movie is overall. There's only so much you can fit into a movie unless you make it 6 hours long, right? And there's just so much more action and stuff in it as well. So, and there's lots of differences between the book and the movie. First and foremost, at the start of the second movie, The Lost World, there's that scene where the little girl on the beach with her parents, they're on a yacht or whatever, they stop at a beach and she sees a compy and it bites her, and that creates an incident. That's actually at the start of the book in Jurassic Park, the original, and they saved that scene for The Lost World for the movies. The kids, Lex is actually younger than Timmy, and Timmy's older, so there's a reverse dynamic there. Gennaro, the lawyer in the book, is like a big kind of muscular guy, and he's not kind of a wimp like the guy in the movie is. The guy that's the wimp in the book that is kind of like Gennaro in the movie is actually a guy named Ed Regis, who doesn't even appear in the movie. He was kind of like the park's PR guy, and he's the one that gets runs out of the car when the kids are with the T-Rex there. And there's a number of other things I can't even remember, but there's so much more action. The T-Rex appears so many more times. They go down the river on a cruise. Oh, the waterfall scene in The Lost World when they're hiding behind the waterfall and the T-Rex, his head bursts through and his tongue is trying to eat them. That's actually in the first movie. So and they go through the aviary where the pterodactyls attack them, which is actually in the third movie. So there's so much more in this book that than they show in the movie, and also parts of the other movies actually don't come from those stories, but they actually come from this original book. So if you've never read it and you love Jurassic Park, I highly recommend reading Jurassic Park, the book. It is just fucking awesome. Next up, I don't have a case for it because we watched it on Netflix. I recently finished the third book in a young reader series called A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting. Well, turns out they made a Netflix movie of this. A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting. So, story behind this one. A public schooler, I think she's 13, maybe 14, I don't remember, named Kelly Ferguson, is excited to go to a party with her friends that she's been invited to. She's kind of a nerd or whatever, but her mom actually asked her at the last minute to babysit for her boss's kid, and she needs this because her boss, they call her the Ice Queen. So Kelly's like, fine. So then, while her friends are off having fun at this party, Kelly's babysitting this guy, little guy named, I think Jacob is his name, and he has a problem going to sleep. He doesn't want to go to sleep. He can't sleep. He normally doesn't sleep, and so Kelly, is like, come on, you gotta go, and she finally convinces him to go to bed and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden, she starts hearing these weird noises and screaming and stuff, and she goes in, and there's these little troll things taking Jacob away through a tunnel that appears in his bedroom floor. So Kelly's just like, what the hell just happened here, right? She goes out to call the cops. They're like, whatever, kid. Get lost, stop wasting our time. They don't believe her. Then all of a sudden, this other teenage girl shows up on a scooter with an infant strapped to her back and says, so what happened here? And she's all like, yeah, okay. Describe these little troll things to me. Okay, yeah, we've got this. So then she starts tracking these trolls and going after the kid, and Kelly tags along because she kind of impresses Liz, this girl, with some of her knowledge and stuff like that. So as this adventure unfolds and they go after the kid, they don't get him. The Grand Guignol gets him, who is one of the 7 monster heads of the whatever, of the nightmare world. And he has a plan to use Jacob's powerful dream ability, nightmare ability, to bring nightmares into the world and kind of take over the world that way. So Liz and Kelly, in the meantime, go to Babysitter HQ, where Kelly learns there's actually a babysitters club that fight monsters, and she wants in. So, and the rest of the movie is just her getting used to going out with Liz and learning all this stuff about monsters and the history behind it, and all the different techniques and weapons and shit that they have to fight them. And yeah, it's just a desperate race to get Jacob back and back in bed before the Ice Queen comes home and goes, what the hell is my son, right? So very cool. I like the movie. It was a pretty good representation of the book. Some minor differences here and there. The big one being Kelly in the book is a kind of a nerdy red-haired white girl, whereas the girl in the movie is black. So they changed up the dynamic there. But otherwise, pretty much most of the other things are the same. And the casting choice that I really liked, and I didn't realize it, the Grand Guignol, the nightmare boogeyman guy, you can't tell because he's got long hair and weird eyes and he's all scarred up and stuff. But it's actually the kid Tom Felton who plays Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter movies. So I thought that was kind of cool because I love Harry Potter. Who doesn't love Harry Potter? Next up, I finally saw this after many, many years of wanting to see it. WALL-E, the movie. So WALL-E is a Disney production, and it focuses on this little robot here who is like a trash compactor, removal, recycler kind of robot. It takes place in, I believe, the 29th century. Humanity has left on this big ship called the Axiom and left for the stars on kind of a pleasure cruise because humanity, and they've been up there for 700 years. So 700 years ago, humanity had gotten to the point where they had ruined the planet with their greed, commercialism, consumerism, wrecking the planet with all their garbage and shit. So they said, you know what, we're going to by and large, I think is the corporation who sponsored this expedition to the stars. They're like, we're going to take all of you away, and in the meantime, all of our little robots here are going to clean up the earth, and we'll come back when it's all done, right? And that was only supposed to be, I think, last 50 years or something like that, but turns out it's been 700. So WALL-E is the last one of these robots still functional on Earth, and he's cleaning stuff up. He's going about his regular day all on his lonesome. And one day, this ship comes down, and this little kind of really futuristic-looking robot comes out, and he's really smitten with her. And he finally approaches her after some tentative moments, and her name is Eve. And WALL-E, after a rough start, like I said, finally befriends her, and they become buddies. And he shows her all sorts of stuff all over his little city and whatever. And finally, he shows her like a sprout of some sort of plant, and Eve is like, she goes into meltdown, takes the thing, and then goes into stasis or whatever, and WALL-E's trying to figure out how to wake her up over the next number of days, until finally the ship that dropped her on Earth comes back, picks her up, and takes off, and WALL-E's like, where are you going? So he tags along and stuff. And this probe goes back to the Axiom. And so the plan was that as soon as they sent these probes down every once in a while to check and see if life had finally started growing again. And once they got the sign that life was there, then the Axiom would return to Earth and they would start recolonizing and whatever, because it means life is getting on with the planet, right? But there is actually a computer, the ship's computer on the Axiom, this artificial intelligence doesn't want them to go back for whatever reason. I can't remember exactly why or whatever, but it starts messing with Eve and the captain of the Axiom and everybody to get rid of this sprout and make sure that return trip doesn't happen. So then it's just Wally and Eve, after many misunderstandings between the two of them and everything, fighting to make the humans realize there is that no, it was real. There's actually life on the planet, so let's return, right? So it's just this desperate struggle to get them all to go back. So really cool movie. There's not a lot of talking for the first while. It's just Wally and his little electronic boops and beeps and whatever, going about his life. It's not until they get up to the Axiom where the actual humans are where finally there's some dialogue and stuff. So it's a really neat dynamic to the movie. And it's a really cool commentary on how humans are just giant pieces of shit, right? Because that's kind of where we're headed, right? We're wrecking the planet. We're greedy. We're all getting fat, and because all the people on the Axiom have robots to do all their bidding, so they don't even walk anymore. They drive these little hover pods everywhere, and they're all like fucking ginormous. So it's a pretty cool commentary on how terrible humans are, which I always enjoy. So awesome movie, great animation, great story, very unique, and you can't help but love little Wally. Next up, we finished a game on PS4 recently that we were looking forward to playing, and it is called Jumanji. We love the movies. We now also love the game. This game is really simple. There's not a lot to it, but despite that, we played it for quite a while, longer than we probably would have had it been another game that didn't maybe do things quite as well, even though it was short. So it's based on the newer ones. You can see The Rock and everybody there, and Jack Black and stuff. So you don't play through like levels and do the whole adventure. You don't see the actual kids that become these characters in the game. It starts, you're in the game, and basically you just have to collect the jewels and get to the statue and yell Jumanji to get out of the level, sort of thing. So so that's all it is. And there's 4 different maps you can play. They don't go in any sort of order. You can pick whichever one you want. So it's a really kind of basic kind of game in its layout and in its gameplay and its operation and everything like that. But once you get into it and play it and try the different characters each time on the different maps and stuff like that, it's really, really fun. And the characters talk a lot and they're funny. And there's tons of trophies in this game. So, and you can, but they're fairly reasonably obtainable if you just buckle down and stuff. So we found, we beat the first or the all 4 maps, but then we were like, God, well, let's go get all those trophies and go back, because it's such a fun game to play. So we went back and we played it a million more times. And as you probably, if you watch my gameplay videos, you've seen all the Jumanji entries we had there. So we just went back and just kept playing the game until we had most of the trophies that we thought we could get. So lots of fun, good graphics and good gameplay and everything. Just kind of weird that it didn't really have a story and it wasn't very long or anything like that. It was just like, here's your 4 levels, have fun, like it was kind of different that way. But despite that, which would normally be kind of a detriment, it actually goes above that. It that doesn't really bring it down at all. So lots of fun. But I wouldn't spend this thing was probably $80 when it first came out. I wouldn't spend that much. I would spend 20 to 30 at the most, sort of thing, for it. But either way, lots of fun. The last thing, played this one for a while because these games are long. Borderlands 2. I played Borderlands on PS3 a couple years ago maybe, and I just friggin' loved it. So I got number 2, and I loved it as well. It's very similar, like in terms of the gameplay and stuff. They add more creatures, more enemies, a totally different story and stuff like that. Well, not totally different. It's based off the first one, but they keep it fresh while at the same time keeping it the same. Which I like because the first one was so good and so successful, right? So after the events of the first one, Handsome Jack is promised to use this new iridium compound that they've discovered after the events of the first game to make the world better and save Pandora and all that stuff. But he's full of shit. He's a madman. He's using the iridium all for nefarious purposes. And he's got a new cast of Vault Hunters on the job in Pandora, because it's rumored that there's an even bigger vault on the planet than there was during the first game that they were after so badly. So he wants these Vault Hunters to find it. But of course he double crosses everybody, and he shows his true colors, as Handsome Jack always does. And so you play as one of these 4 Vault Hunters, and you eventually you fight back against Jack by joining the Crimson Raiders, which is an organization dedicated to fighting Hyperion and Handsome Jack. So at first you have to go rescue their leader Roland, and then eventually you fight this Firebird, I think the name of the creature is, but it ends up being Lilith from the first game, who's become some sort of weird she uses iridium to do all sorts of weird powers now, so she becomes an ally. And then other guys from the first game too, some of the Vault Hunters like Mordecai and Brick and those guys, they become your allies too as you make your way through the game. And eventually you once you rescue Roland, you find Lilith, whatever, you do all the jobs, your task is to get the vault key so that Handsome Jack can open the vault, and you are the one that controls the vault, because inside the vault is apparently a large creature called the Warrior that whoever opens the vault has the power over. So Handsome Jack wants to use this creature to have his way with Pandora, basically, right? So you want to beat him to it and turn the tables on him, but of course you don't, and you have to fight this giant beast in the end. And it's a long fight, not a tough one if you do it right and have patience and stuff like that, but a long fight for sure. But anyways, the game had the exact same kind of scheme as the first game. All the different weapons, shields, grenade mods, all that stuff you find, and you can sell, you can upgrade, and everything, and you fast travel to different regions. You got your car that you can use at various points, the weapon or the vehicle spawn stations and stuff like that. A lot of the characters are in it again. Scooter's in it again, but there's some new ones, like Scooter's sister Ellie is new to the game. So they just continued the story along in a really awesome way, and just adding some new stuff, but keeping the spirit and the gameplay of the game intact, and just adding more to the story, basically. So really fun game, but they do take a while to play through, and you really you don't have to do. There's all the side missions you can do that are outside the story missions, which you don't have to do to beat the game, but as the game goes along, it gets harder, of course, and the more you play these side missions, the more XP you gain, the more you level up, the more abilities you gain, right? So you kind of, I always did them because I want to be as powerful as possible and make sure I can beat the game without wanting to throw a controller through the window, right? So I always did as many side missions as I could. Plus, it's a fun game, so it's fun to do all that, right? So, but anyways, I'm rambling. But awesome game. All the rest of this stuff was awesome too. Yeah, I'll be back in probably a couple weeks with 5 more things to report on.